Good evening, everybody. Marsh Mage here, and today I am showing off my Marchesa of the Black Rose Grixis artifact deck. So Marchesa of the Black Rose, she has Dethrone, so whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Every other creature gets dethroned with her out here. And then whenever a creature I control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, return that card to the beginning of the return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So she's my commander, and her generals for this deck are Prosper Tomebound. So he's a 1/4 with Death Touch, and at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. And then whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. We're using Duretti, Scrap Savant. So his +2 is discard the top 2 cards and then draw that many cards. His -2 is sacrifice an artifact. If you do, return target artifact card from the graveyard to the battlefield. And then his -10 is you get an emblem. Is whenever an artifact is put in your graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. He is also going to be working alongside with Kirkesh, the Anake Ancient. So whenever I activate an ability of an artifact, if it isn't a mana ability, I may pay 1 red. If I do copy that ability, I may choose new targets for that copy. Bosch, Iron Golem. He's a 6/7 with Trample with 3 in a red. Sacrifice an artifact. Bosch, Iron Golem deals damage equal to the sacrifice artifact's converted mana cost to target creature or player. Felden of the Third Path. He's a 2/3 with a 2 in a red. Tap it. Put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So those are our legendary creatures and commanders. And now just our straight up artifact creatures we have in this deck. We're running Lizard Blades. Double strike, and equip creature has double strike. Cost 2 to equip it, otherwise it's a 1/1 creature. We have a Junk Diver, and that's a 1/1 flyer, and when it dies, return another target artifact card from my graveyard to my hand. The Cathodian, when it dies, adds 3 colorless to my mana pool. Pilgrim's Eye. It's a 1/1 flyer. When the Pilgrim's Eye enters the battlefield, I may search my library for up to 1 basic land card, reveal it, put it into my hand, then shuffle my library. And we got a Rabbit Battery, which is a 1/1 artifact creature with haste, or a equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has haste and costs a red to equip it. And then Epocrisite, which is when it enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, if I didn't cast it from my hand. So it'll be a 1/1 when I cast it from my hand. When it comes out from the graveyard, it'll be a 4/4. When it dies, exile it with 3 time counters on it, and it gains Suspend. So at the beginning of my upkeep, I remove a time counter. When the last one is removed, cast this card without paying its mana cost, and it has haste. We threw in an Iron Hoof Boar, which is a 5/4 with Trample and Haste. It has Channel. For 1 in a red, discard it, and target creature gets +3/+1 and gains Trample until the end of turn. Roving Keep is a 5/7 defender. For 7 mana, he gets +2 and +0 and gains Trample until the end of turn, and he can attack this turn as if he didn't have defender. Wormcoil Engine. It's a 6/6 with Death Touch and Lifelink. When it dies, put a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature token with Death Touch and a 3/3 colorless worm artifact token creature with Lifelink onto the battlefield. Palladium Mirror. Tap it to add 2 mana to my mana pool. Runaway Trashbot. It's a 0/4 with Trample. He gets +1/+0 for each artifact and or enchantment card in my graveyard. We have a Pentravis, which is when the Pentravis enters the battlefield with 5+1/+1 counters on it. Pay a mana to remove a 1/1 counter from it. Put a 1/1 colorless Penavite artifact creature token with flying onto the battlefield. And then, or I could pay 1 and then sacrifice the Pentavite to put a +1/+1 counter on this guy. Tetravis. He's a 1/1 flyer. When it comes into play, put 3 +1/+1 counters on it. During my upkeep, I may move each of these counters on or off Tetravis regardless of who controls them. Counters that are removed become Tetravite tokens. Treat these tokens as 1/1 artifact creatures with flying. These creatures cannot have enchantments played on them and do not share any enchantments on Tetravis. Creepy Doll. It's indestructible, and whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, flip a coin. If I win the flip, destroy the creature. We've got a Mirror Battlesphere out here, which is when it enters the battlefield, put 4 1/1 colorless Mirror artifact creature tokens onto the battlefield. Whenever Mirror Battlesphere attacks, you may tap X, untap Mirror you control, and if you do, Mirror Battlesphere gets +X/+0 until the end of turn, and deals X damage to defending player. Chief of the Foundry. Other artifact creatures I control get a +1/+1 counter. Spine of Isha. When this enters the battlefield, destroy target permanent. When the Spine of Isha is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return the Spine of Isha into its owner's hand. Ginger Brew. A 1/1 with haste. Pay 1 mana. Can't be blocked by this turn except by creatures with haste. Or I can pay 2 and tap it. Sacrifice it to gain 3 life. A Phyrexian Revoker. When he enters the battlefield, name a non-land card. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name cannot be activated. We have a Scuttling Doom Engine. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. When it dies, it deals 6 damage to target opponent. We have a Walking Skyscraper. It is an 8/8. It costs 1 less to cast for each modified creature I control. It has Trample, and it has Hexproof as long as it's untapped. And a Solemn Simulacrum. When it enters the battlefield, I may search my library for a basic land card, put that card on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle my library. And then when he dies, I can draw a card. Now, the other toys in this deck. We have a Nevinyrral's Disc, comes into play tapped. Pay 1 to tap it, destroy all creatures, artifacts, enchantments, and including the disc itself. Jandor's Saddlebags, 3 and a 3 to tap it, untap target creature. Lore Seeker's Stone, 3 and a tap, draw 3 cards. This ability costs 1 more to activate for each card in your hand. Ichor Wellspring, when it enters the battlefield or is put in the graveyard, draw a card. Jeweled Amulet, it's a 0-drop. Tap 1 and tap it. Put a charge counter on Jeweled Amulet. Note what type of mana was used to pay this activation cost. Use this ability only if there are no charge counters on Jeweled Amulet. Then tap it to remove charge counter from Jeweled Amulet to add 1 mana of the type last used to put a charge counter on the Jeweled Amulet. Use your from your mana pool. Use it as an interrupt. We have an Everflowing Chalice with a multi-kicker of 2, so I can pay 2 any number of times I want. Enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it for each time it was kicked. Tap it, add 1 mana to your mana pool for each charge counter on the chalice. Mycosynth Wellspring. When it enters the battlefield or is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, search my library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle my library. Tablet of Evidir. Pay 1 mana. You gain 1 life every time one of your artifacts goes to the graveyard. You can only give 1 life each time an artifact reaches that graveyard, so you can't do it multiple times. Aladdin's Lamp. X and tap. Instead of drawing a card from the top of your library, draw X cards but only choose one of those to put in my hand, shuffle the leftovers, and put them at the bottom of my library. Howling Mine, each player draws one extra card during his or her draw phase. We got a Soul Grill, it comes in play, choose a color, tap it, add 1 mana of the chosen color to your mana pool. Soul Ring, self-explanatory. Jester's Mask, comes in a play tapped, 1 and tap it. Sacrifice Jester's Mask to look through target opponent's hand and library. Give that player a new hand of as many cards as he or she had before. Reshuffle the remaining cards afterwards. Dark Steel Ingot, indestructible, tap it to gain 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Ebony Fly, enters the battlefield tap it to add 1 colorless mana, or I can pay 4 to roll a d6. Until the end of turn, I may have the Ebony Fly become an XX insect artifact creature with flying, where X is the result of that die roll. Whenever Ebony Fly attacks, another target attacking creature gains flying until the end of turn. Oni Cult Anvil. Whenever one or more artifacts I control leave the battlefield during my turn, create a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Sacrifice. Tap it to sacrifice an artifact. Oni Anvil deals 1 damage to each opponent, and I gain 1 life. Pristine Talisman. Tap it to add 1 mana to my mana pool. I gain 1 life. Dreamstone Hedron, tap it to add 3 to my mana pool. Tap 3, then tap this, sacrifice the Hedron, draw 3 cards. You got a Mind Stone, self-explanatory. A Gem of Becoming, 3 to tap. Sacrifice the Gem of Becoming. Search my library for an island card, a swamp card, and a mountain card. Reveal those cards and put them in your hand, and then shuffle your library. Vorpal Sword. Equipped creature gets +2 and +0 and has Death Touch. But for 5 colorless and 3 swamps until the end of turn, Vorpal Sword gains. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game, and it costs 2 swamps to equip it. Felwar Stone, another mana rock, pretty self-explanatory. Time Bomb. During your upkeep, put a time counter on Time Bomb. Tap 1, pay 1 and tap. Sacrifice the Time Bomb to have it deal X damage to each creature and player, where X is equal to the number of time counters on the Time Bomb. Armageddon Clock. Put 1 counter on Armageddon Clock during each of your upkeeps. At the end of your upkeep, each player takes damage equal to the number of counters on the clock. Any player may spend 4 mana during any upkeep to prevent to remove a counter. Treasure Chest. Pay 4 to sacrifice it, roll a d20. If it's a 1, well, that sucks. If it's a 1, you lose 3 life. If you roll a 2 through 9, you gain 5 treasure tokens. A 10 through 19, you gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. And if you roll a 20, search your library for a card. If it's an artifact card, you may put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, you shuffle that card in your hand, then shuffle. The Hammer of Fuforos. All creatures I control have haste. I do an additional thing here, but I'm not going to ever use that. I just have it for that. Everything gets haste. But for 2 in a red, tap it, sacrifice a land, put a 3/3 colorless golem enchantment creature token onto the battlefield. And then Swift Foot Boots. The equipped creature has hexproof and haste. The only vehicle I'm running in this deck is a Futuristic Sentinel, crew 3 for a 6/6 creature. Now for the side creatures. Goblin Welder. Tap it to choose target artifact a player controls and target artifact card in that player's graveyard. If both targets are still legal as this ability resolves, that player simultaneously sacrifices the artifact and returns the artifact card to the battlefield. Excuse me. Priest of Yawgmoth. Tap to add an amount of black mana equal to target artifact's casting cost to your mana pool. This effect is played as an interrupt. Target artifact, which must belong to you, is discarded. This artifact cannot be one that is already on its way to the graveyard, and artifact creatures killed this way may not be regenerated. The Atog gets +2/+2 each time I use this ability. I gotta sacrifice one of my artifacts. Sodelvi Machinist. Tap to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. This mana may only be used to pay the activation cost of an artifact. Play this ability as an interrupt. So 2 free mana to go to any of these artifacts with an activation cost. Reclusive Artificer. She has haste, and when she enters the battlefield, I may have it deal damage to target creature equal to the number of artifacts I control. We have a Loyal Apprentice with haste and the Lieutenant ability. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. That token gains haste until the end of turn. Marionette Machinist. She has Fabricate 3. So when this creature enters the battlefield, I get to put 3 +1/+1 counters on it or create 3 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. Whenever an artifact I control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. Chief Engineer. Artifact spells I cast have Convoke, so I can tap. My creatures can help cast those spells. Each creature I tap while casting an artifact spell pays for 1 colorless mana or 1 mana of that creature's color. Clever Conjurer. He's a 2/3 with the Mage Hand ability, so tap him to untap target permanent not named Clever Conjurer. Activate as in a sorcery, so it's only on your turn. 1 instant and 1 sorcery only in this deck. Can you believe it? Our instant is Fated Return. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains indestructible. And if it was my turn, scry 2. And then Scrap Mastery. Each player exiles all artifact cards from his or her graveyard, then sacrifices all artifacts he or she controls, and puts all cards he or she exiled this way onto the battlefield. And then, last but not least, our enchantments. Military Intelligence. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. Mirror Maid. You may have Mirror Maid enter the battlefield as a copy of an artifact or as an enchantment already on the battlefield. Thopter Spy Network. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, put a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying onto the battlefield. And then whenever 1 or more artifact creatures I control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. For lands, we are running 4 islands, 4 swamps, 7 mountains, and the rest of my lands, we'll show you what we're rocking with. We're rocking a Roadside Reliquary, a Great Furnace, a Bottomless Vault, a Rakdos Guildgate, a Mage Ring Network, Phyrexia's Core, Smoldering Marsh, Swiftwater Cliffs, Dismal Blackwater, Bloodfell Caves, Urza's Mine, Urza's Power Plant, Urza's Tower, Darksteel Citadel, and an Izzet Guildgate. And that is how Marchesa and her toys are going to take over the world. As for tokens, you're going to love this, guys, and my horrible artistic abilities. My crappy Thopter tokens. You're going to need constructs. You're going to need mirror tokens, which I have plenty of. Oh, I only have 3 of them. I thought I had more. We have our Pentavites for our Petrovis. Our servos for the Marionette Master. And our 2 worms for the Worm Coil Engine. I need to get the Duretti emblem still, but we'll get there eventually. But yeah, until then, I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you guys really like that Kadama video of the West Tree. It seems that one pretty popular video. I was pretty shocked. But yeah, I hope all you guys and gals out there are doing well, slinging all the best spells you possibly can. I have to say, my job's been going crazy. It's been going great for me, but yeah, it's been why I've delayed any videos for almost 2 weeks now. But I'm back, hopefully for a little bit. And one of these days, like I said, Orzhov Vampires is going to happen. But until then, we'll just have to wait patiently. So when I see you in the next video, hopefully you'll be by. This is Marsh Mage, and we will see you in the next one. All right, everybody? Peace.